For decades, the blueprint for corporate success was rigid and highly vertical. It was a massive, top-down structure optimized to control every internal process. But today, that monolith is splintering into a decentralized web of external partners. That hierarchical design is a legacy model. It was originally conceptualized to optimize internal reporting lines and compartmentalized functions, functioning much like the command structure of a military empire. But modern markets punish inflexibility. Product life cycles are shrinking rapidly, and the global expectation for just-in-time delivery requires rapid, agile responses to volatile demand. A rigid corporate pyramid cannot move fast enough to survive these pressures. This exposes a critical reality of modern business. Individual companies no longer compete against each other as standalone entities. We have entered an era of network competition. The true battle is fought between entire, integrated supply chains. Market leadership requires shifting focus away from optimizing internal processes and toward managing a complex web of external relationships. Organizations must abandon the boundary lines of the old Roman Empire model. Survival in this environment depends entirely on a firm's ability to integrate into and manage an external ecosystem. That integration fails when companies rely on traditional purchasing tactics. The standard operating procedure has always been adversarial, keeping suppliers at arm's length and playing multiple sources off one another to force the lowest possible price. This strategy is built on a mathematical illusion. It assumes that aggressively squeezing a supplier's profit margin will directly translate to a cheaper, more competitive product in the final marketplace. What that assumption ignores is the interface cost. This is the hidden layer of friction and expense that generates exactly at the point where one company's supply chain connects to another's. Interface costs are driven by three main factors: transaction costs from manually placing orders and chasing invoices, process costs caused by misaligned standards like different pallet sizes, and uncertainty costs, which force companies to hold expensive safety stock because they don't trust their partners' forecasts. When supply chain partners act defensively to protect their own internal margins, they stop sharing information. That lack of visibility inflates all three of these interface costs simultaneously. Transferring a cost upstream to a supplier or downstream to a customer does not eliminate it from the system. It merely compounds the interface inefficiencies, and ultimately, all of those hidden costs make their way into the price paid by the end user. This prisoner's dilemma matrix reveals outcomes when trust is absent. Fearing betrayal, neither side cooperates. They end up in the suboptimal both confess quadrant, where squeezed suppliers cut corners and buyers spend more on rework. The optimum is neither confess, a partnership based on mutual confidence. True, sustainable cost reduction is mathematically impossible in a zero-trust environment. Optimizing the network means stopping the fight over a fixed slice of the margin and working together to expand the total value of the pie. We can pinpoint exactly where these interface costs hide by looking at the automotive industry, specifically through the lens of Nissan's supplier development teams. This diagram outlines the vehicle manufacturer's baseline assumption, where 85% of costs are outside material costs. Breaking open that material block reveals the supplier's internal ratio. Crucially, up to 30% of their overhead is actually tied up in their own redundant logistics. Calculate that system-wide, and the math is staggering. Approximately 12% of the total car manufacturing cost is just the supplier's logistics tax, caused entirely by a lack of integration between the two companies. The traditional adversarial approach seen in this graph aims to squeeze the supplier's margin, focusing strictly on splitting a fixed pie. The collaborative goal targets that 12% overlap directly. By integrating planning, both entities push the value curve outward, expanding the pie. Discovering and eliminating duplicate interface costs provides a competitive advantage far greater than any internal manufacturing efficiency a single firm could achieve on its own. This creates a structural challenge. If your competitive advantage relies entirely on a vast, decentralized ecosystem of partners, how do you control it without reverting back to owning everything? A century ago, Henry Ford solved supply chain risk through total vertical integration. He owned the steel mills, the rubber plantations, and the mahogany forests. He achieved control by purchasing the entire network. The modern antithesis to Ford is Li and Feng. They manage global scale, coordinating apparel and consumer goods manufacturing without actually owning the physical assets producing them. Instead, Li and Feng acts as a central coordinator for over 7,500 highly specialized manufacturing organizations across 40 countries. When an order arrives, they dynamically route production based on specific capabilities, sourcing yarn from one country, dyeing it in a second, and assembling it in a third. The coordination hinges on a specific methodology, providing strict specifications for the value-adding outcome, what exactly must be achieved, while leaving the specific process of execution to the specialized supplier. This is supply chain orchestration. It is the ability to utilize superior visibility and knowledge to coordinate an outsourced network more effectively than a fully owned, vertically integrated chain. Formalizing this orchestration model is driving a shift from standard third-party logistics, or 3PL, toward the fourth-party logistics framework, the 4PL. The difference is structural. While a traditional 3PL operates physical logistics activities, managing trucks and warehouses, a 4PL acts as a joint venture. It manages the entire end-to-end network architecture. This model relies on 4 pillars. First is the architect, which designs the supply chain vision. Second is the control room, which provides the optimization engines and decision support. Third is the infomediary, responsible for integrating IT systems to translate real-time data into visibility. And finally, the resource providers, the actual 3PLs supplying the physical transportation and warehouse assets. By combining these 4 pillars, the 4PL model replaces physical inventory buffers with pure information. It utilizes open book accounting and complete visibility across the pipeline to systematically eradicate uncertainty costs. Executing this level of orchestration requires internal transformation. Companies must dismantle their own operational silos and permanently abandon adversarial, price-squeezing relationships with their suppliers. The era of the standalone corporate empire is over. Organizations that fail to reconfigure their operations to leverage a collaborative, orchestrated ecosystem will find their competitive advantage entirely erased by networks that do.